Hello. Thanks, everyone. I think everyone of us joined right now. Uh, Thank you for joining once again. So today, let me just quickly introduce you about Jennifer as well as Ram, the two speakers of today. The topic is to be the power of intelligent automation for our changing digital world. Jennifer is the CEO of AI App Store, now currently getting rebranded as RedRex. Prior to AI App Store, Jennifer served in multiple leadership roles across Tab QA, Oracle, Target, and Express Script. To cut it short, if you go through one of the some of the best quality assurance or else test automation events all across the world, I'm sure out of the 10 events you go through, she would be speaking at least at 4 to 5. So that's something which is very known for Jennifer. And on the other hand, we have Ram Yerneni. While he happened to be the founder and CEO of QATTS, he still loves to be called as a product architect or an evangelist. And quality automation total testing software, the acronym QATTS, is an end-to-end test automation software, and it's a brainchild of Mr. Yerneni. Ram has more than 2 decades of experience in enabling digital transformations to some of the Fortune listed companies and enterprises, which includes one of the top 20 insurance companies providers in the world, which is QBE. So over to you, Ram. Probably you can take it from here.
Yeah. Thank you for that introduction, Mac. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So yeah, as Mac has been talking about, the topic of the day is the power of intelligent automation for a digital world. As we have been hearing in the industry in the last 5 years or so, everyone is talking about the digital world, so digital transformations. So that's become a thing that everyone is talking about. Every enterprise is looking to transform their business into as digitally. So while doing so, obviously, there's a number of challenges and number of hurdles that will be coming through. And one of the area of which is not been evolved as much as other digital technologies is the test automation space. Today, I want to talk about a little bit on that, and I want to see what are the challenges what we had and how do we make sure that we can overcome those challenges. Okay, we have a few more people who joining. Just, okay, so with that, I will start my presentation. Right. So what happened in the last decade in the test automation space? If you look at it, and this is the source of the information is the World Quality Report. So so what we are getting there, on an average, only 16 to 18% of the automation is done out of the total testing that is being done. So it means, as you can see, there is a lot of gap that needs to be filled in. And if we coming to the ROI side of it, only 37% claim that they have realized their money, what have they invested onto the test automation. Clearly, it says there is a lot of scope for test automation, and also there is also clearly saying that you have to do it right to get your money back. So today we're going to talk about that. So how we're going to do that? So being an application engineering and background, so I have I'll speak about how we can transform the traditional automation methods, traditional automation with the new age approaches. And Jennifer is again, she is an expert in the AI and ML, and she's going to say how we can add AI and ML to make this more better. Yeah. Right. Right. So obviously, the results are not happy for us. So there is something that we need to do. So over the last year, so the products are single monolithic applications, and now over the years we have changed that so into multiple layers. So we have a UI layer separated, API services are separated, and we added integrations to our customers or vendors. So we are also providing more services. So what does that mean as a QA team? So we have to test all these aspects of testing. You have to test the web application testing, mobile application testing, and you have to test your database, APIs, integrations, and whatnot, experiences, user experience. There's a lot of things that are coming through when you're doing a touching thing. So over the period, so who is being taking the responsibility of these testing these all the different interfaces that we have? Obviously, the major load goes to your QA, manual QA team. So they're the workhorses, and they're spending a lot of time in doing the repeated testing. And that's what the World Quality Report also says, only 16% is being automated. So there is a lot more. So there is the 84% is actually carried out by your manual testers. Right? So, and coming to the automation space, then you have the web application automations, you have a mobile application automations, and then you have a separate things for API automation, and for database testing, again, you have a different kind of an approaches. Right? And then the unit testing as well. So most of the unit testing is also carried by the developers. So there's different multiple teams has been assembled to carry out the testing, and out of which, again, as per the report, as we mentioned earlier, only the 84% is carried out with the manual QA, and the rest all is done by the remaining other areas. So obviously, the reason why we are not able to get a value out, still by doing all whatever the automation with the traditional ways, you are not able to still get the value out of the money, because they're very tedious. The approaches what currently are there are very tedious, and not able to get in time, not able to get the releases out in time. So the challenge is what the current automation space has created is low interoperability, meaning you can't test between, okay, if I want to testing a web application, suddenly can I call an API? No, you can, because these are all different things. If you have to call an API, you have to write a custom code. And then again, eventually by doing so, you'll get into more complex scenarios, and then your code becomes very complicated. So that's something that definitely needs to be looked at in the coming days, because when you do a round trip testing, so you register something on the web and you have to ensure that you got a notification on the mobile or not. So this number of touch points are coming in the single use case. So therefore, you definitely need something which can touch upon multiple areas of automation in the same test case that you have. Yeah, and then because of, as you can see in the here, there's a number of different types of automations that are happening. So therefore, you have to opt for multi-skilled automation engineers are required. So for API, mobile, and desktop. So that's again overall, it's adding a overall cost to the companies that you have to perform, bring in different expertise for different kinds of automations. And then the very low team collaborations, because again, these things are very independently driven. So everything works in its own silo. So everyone thinks that particular piece is good, but they don't have much visibility on what's going on in the other departments. So there's definitely very low team collaboration. Infrastructure challenges, again, because of the things, right? So again, you are touching testing on different devices, different mobile devices, different browsers, and all those things. That also poses new challenges in the infrastructure. Another important aspect is the lack of visibility. So if I'm a product owner, do I get a single dashboard where I say, okay, how much of the overall test cases that I have has been executed completely? So currently you have, for manual, you have something to look at. For web applications, you need to look at something. Mobile applications, separate things are there. So again, as a product owner, I will not, currently I'm not able to see one single snapshot of where my build is going on, how much has been automated, how much is been passed for this build. That measure is not there. Overall, I think if you look at, because of the independent silos of automations has been done, so there is a dependency on skilled automation engineers are there. So because most of the enterprises opted for proprietary frameworks on top of open source drivers kind of stuff, so that eventually led to its own programming and it's going to have its own software on its own, which needs to go through a rigorous testing process as well before that can be applied to your automation. Right. So with all these challenges, as you can clearly see, the industry hasn't done enough to transform this into a new age, to solve these issues enough. In the automation industry, if you look at the most of the global leaders in the automation industry, they'll be speaking more about, so they initially they all started with a web application or a desktop application. They added product after product, but they never made sure all of that are covered into one product. So if you look at most of the market leaders today, everyone has their own product for a different needs, right? So they may have a little bit of connectivity, but it's not as flexible as you expect to scale up your automations to a greater state. That's where, I mean, we as a started initiative to solve this problem. And our vision when we do this is this: how do we make up these are the goals that if any enterprise, if they want to opt for an automation, these are the goals they would like to have. First thing is to empower your product stakeholders with the power of automation. So if automation is doing it, being make your automation the workhorse for your QA team. So because you have to do the repeated testings because of the today's agility that at which the developers or the changes are coming through on a day in day out. So you have to opt for an automation for your regular regression testings. Without that, you will not be ensuring that the quality of the product that goes out of the window is as good as it was in the previous way. So you have to opt for an automation, and you have to bring in all the stakeholders. So the power of automation comes is when I can the stakeholder, the product stakeholder can literally see what exactly is going on and what kind of test cases are done, what is passed, what is failed, how many times it's been failed and rerun. All that you need to see to get a better understanding of the quality of the product, quality of the teams, individual teams that are coming through. So this is a very important goal that has to be defined. And then you have to automate without technology barriers. So technology barriers, in a sense, today, if you look at whatever the web application or the mobile application, the automations we're talking about, so we don't want to dive into more into your technology hurdles, right? So you want to automate, you want to do some things. You need to have ready-made solutions built in, because with the digital evolution, you have a lot of things ready today. So you need to just use the right frameworks, the right tools to make sure that you are not going into the technology hurdles, but you are focused on your product. So your automation should only be running through what your use case is talking about, not more into your technology barriers. Higher interoperability is, as I was talking about. So you should be able to test multiple things, multiple interfaces in the single test case. So the tools or frameworks that you design should be able to use achieve this as a must. And then easy onboarding. So again, you should not be spending a lot of time in getting your automation ready. You don't want to wait 3 months to build a framework or 6 months to build a framework and then get your test cases out. So you should be able to do at a very rapid speed. So to achieve a better automation, so you need to opt for frameworks or tools which will give you that. Low maintenance and high reliability. This is very important aspect. So most of the times we build an automation and then it works fine because that was the scope of the thing, and then we have successfully automated your so-called 100 or 1,000 test cases. But then the issue is how much time it needs to take to manage these scrapes on longer run. So your program do change quite often. I mean, that's why you have developers and you are planning sprints, the 2 weekly sprints or 3 weekly sprints, means you are getting changes week in, week out. So you should be able to adapt these things within the same sprint. So most, as I know, I think most of the automations today are not able to be completed in the same sprint. That was a really big challenge. So you need to make sure that the very low maintenance and also high reliability. Um, if you're doing a repo, the scripts, it should be able to give you more and more reliability. And then very insights. So insights into your automation. So again, I was talking about where it has failed, how many times I have to rerun one particular test case, what else needs to be covered. These are these few important questions as a product owner you need to be knowing before to ensure that the release is going in the right direction. Again, you need to get all these reports at your fingertips, not by just an email overnight. You should be able to go and get your reports when you want, rather than being told end of the day. And again, when most of the times, I think when you opt for a framework or anything, so again, the next point is also test environment virtualization. So again, that has to be again for deploying a test automation, test infrastructure. Again, if you forming your own DevOps and you are forming your own Selenium grids kind of things to execute, again, that's more laborious. So you need to see some tools or frameworks which easily let you execute on a remote machine without much of a hassle. So that saves a hell lot of a time and also a lot of confusions at the time of deploying. All that will be avoided with. And most importantly, integrations with your software development like life cycle ecosystem. That is a must. Again, you have to have a deep integrations must be there. And lastly, I would like to add like extendable automation for exploratory testing. So means you today, if you are looking at your manual QA teams, they are spending around roughly 40 minutes, 40% of their time on exploratory testing, and the remaining 60 they are still spending on executing their ad hoc tests. So you should be able to, your automation should be so flexible that it can be giving a helping hand to your manual tester, so you can save an additional time for your manual tester, where he can be focused more onto the quality of your product. How do we achieve that? Right? First and foremost, no matter what tool, what framework you choose, you need to have a right team with complete product knowledge, and you need to define the right vision for them, what needs to be achieved as part of your automation. Without your right team, you will not be able to get your goals correct. That's a very important step in when you embarking on an automation journey. That is an important aspect of it. Increased focus on API testing. So this is one thing that rather than testing independently. So simple, if you look at measuring the automation testing API versus your web-based or mobile testing. So the APIs, you can test maybe 100 or 200 test cases in less than a minute. Right? So when you can have that kind of thing, so you should not spend more time on functional testing, UI-based testing. So nowadays you can bring the API testing to a functional API testing, meaning if you are having a workflow with 4 or 5 screens, there is definitely 4 or 5 APIs behind on the back of it. So if you call those APIs in a sequence, is nothing more than a functional API testing. So if you can achieve those things, most of the functionality which you struggle to automate with your with your UI based automation, so can be tested very rapidly with the API testing. It saves time and in creating the test cases, and also it saves a hell lot of a time in executing these tests as well. So you'll get very instantaneous results, and even the developer, before they can implement it, before they can push the build, they can run it on their own local machine to get the results out as well. An important thing is, next point I would like to talk is the data-driven automation. This is a very important aspect. Over the last 2 decades, when I have seen most of the automation scripts, they've been built with your automation code, your flow of your automation, and you also have your data, business logic, everything embedded into one script. And that's not going to take you long. So my next 3 points is covering that. Is the data-driven automation is a must. So you need to be able to control your automation flows basis of your automation. So that gives your scripts that will ensure. My next point is very low code scripting. So you'll opt for a very low code scripting, meaning you only have an application flow, no technical jargon will be there. So it'll be as simple as that. And then when you use the data driven automation with these kind of low scripts, you will get your testers, or you want to add a new test cases, it will be very easy to add, and then your maintenance will be very, very low because it's a very low script. And then the right design will be, I would recommend, is to have a reusable functional components as your building blocks of your automation. So you can form each and every functionality that you have into a small building blocks and stitch them in the right order to create your test script and execute without any dependencies. And moving on, the next point I have is the test data. That is the important aspect when you especially choosing the data-driven automation. Test data, you have to make sure that your test data will never expire. So, and then if you want to add more power to it, add then data modelings that AI is bringing today's world. So you have a lot of data modeling that you can be plugged into it to rapidly take it to the next level. And last one is the increase your accuracy with integrated database testing. So that will complete your round trip testing from your test data, from your testing module like UI or API that has to connect it back to your database. That will complete your round trip testing to ensure what's been, what we started is actually what is being stored into your database. That will give you a complete assurance and accuracy of your test scripts. if you're going for a tool kind of a stuff that you want to choose one, then make sure that you have a support for API, web, mobile, and desktop. That is a must. And also make sure that what else it can give you beyond automation, right? Automation is not just about controlling your components on your web or something. It is beyond that. You need to look at the complete test ecosystem needs to be automated, starting from your test case management, test data, to your test execution and getting your results. All of that has to be very easily automated. So if you're going for a tool, make sure that you have all those things tick boxes, and make sure you have a good integrations with your CI/CD pipelines or issue management, or getting your alerts into the collaborative tools. When getting an emails, that's a very old school. So you need to get more collaborative tools like your Slack or Teams or whatever it is you're using. Sure, you should get your notifications directly into your channels, so all the team members has a visibility of what's going on. And also the test infrastructure management, make sure that you're putting your own hands on the managing this infrastructure. So nowadays most of the cloud-based tools gives you this advantage of leveraging the cloud-based infrastructure, so you don't have to be worried about whether it's been on or off, it's been right things are kept or there or not. Everything has to be managed within the tool itself, so we can automatically push and get you more results easily, and you should be able to um, keep your hands free there. And support of new technologies. Again, there's a lot of new advancements are coming in the AI and ML space, and my friend Jennifer will be speaking now. So that's where you can make sure that support is also there. So that's where you can definitely scale up to the your automation to the next level when it's needed.
Yeah, thanks, Ram. So, Jennifer, I would like to take you from here. So, all the people who joined, so we have a Q&A session at the end of the Jennifer. Once Jennifer comes and speaks of it, we have a Q&A, and we will open up for the question and answers. So, I'd request you to hold your questions for now, so Ram and Jennifer can give the answers post Jennifer speaking. Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Over to you. I think you are on mute, Jennifer.
No, I'm good now. Can you hear me? You guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah, we can hear you, Jennifer.
Okay, all right. So we're going to pull this up so we can share the screen. Can you guys see my screen? You guys see it? Yeah. Anyone know where the reactions are on Zoom? Let me see if you know where those are. So if you know where reactions are, can you give me a thumbs up if you see my screen?
Yeah,
I'm testing if you're all awake. So what I'm going to have you do, since I can't see all of you, as Mac mentioned, and thanks, Ram, for having us. Normally we do, thanks, Sashi. So Sashi's awake today. Sashi, I appreciate you finding reactions. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you use those reactions because I'm going to ask some questions. And normally I'm at a lot of live events. So I normally get to see all of your smiling faces in person. And now Ram and I just get to look at each other because we don't get to see you guys today. But use those reactions so we know what you're thinking and we can get some feedback. As Mac mentioned, we'll do questions at the end, but would love, thanks Harshit, that's awesome. He found reactions. This is a test, see if you know really how to use Zoom. Myself, Andrew, and Rick are the co-founders of multiple companies and organizations, as Mac mentioned. If you see us next week, instead of this pink that you see, you're going to see red and it'll be a T-Rex. But for one more week, you will see this. We are launching a new AI-based platform that is out. So if you want to check it out, it's at redrex.com is our new platform. But where we come from is wanting to solve problems. Ram mentioned the problems we're having now are the lack of ability to scale if we just use humans, right? There aren't possibly enough humans we can even hire to do all of the work that we have on our plates. So if we look at what all of us are doing every day, how many of you, give me a thumbs up if you guys still have stuff to do at the end of your day? Like once you're done with work, you've still got a to-do list that's massive, right? So thanks, Rob. So see, we just don't have enough time. So how do we scale? And we scale like Ram mentioned through intelligent automation and some of these new technologies. So we're going to talk a little bit about those, but our background, as Ram mentioned, is in the AI space and scaling companies rapidly around new technologies. So just to level set, I always like to talk about what AI really is, because I know there's still a lot of people who are skeptical about what it is and its impact. So I want to give you guys just some base terminology of what I use so we all have the same idea. Then we'll talk a little bit about problems it solves in our world. How can it help you along with intelligent automation? What are approaches to get started when it's scary to get started on some of this intelligent automation and the AI and ML? And then what trends we're seeing around skills we're all going to need. So as Mac mentioned, when machines start to do more work, when we can leverage automation, we as humans shift our skill set a little bit. So as we digitally transform, how do we do that? So how are we able to make those transformations? So what is AI really? So for AI, it's intelligence demonstrated by machines, in contrast to what we see by the natural intelligence all of us display as humans. So it's that simple. Artificial intelligence is all intelligence that is not demonstrated by human intelligence and us as human beings. So that's our AI there when we talk about that. Then you'll hear people mix in the term machine learning. So machine learning underneath the covers of AI is really just another field of computer science that uses statistical analysis and techniques to give computer systems the ability to, quote, learn in different ways with data without explicitly being programmed. So as Ram mentioned, going more to that low code model of where we're going to move in our world, we want to be able to use systems and patterns of behavior to learn and teach without data, without explicitly having to program it. So if we all think about a story of what we're all facing today with this pandemic, you notice that we were able to go from no vaccine to different trials to vaccines out and being deployed faster than we've ever been able to do in history. A lot of that had to do with machines helping process vast amounts of data much quicker than we as humans can process. When they process that data, they're able to recommend to the scientists and the people working on these vaccines which options are most likely to result in the ability to produce a successful vaccine. So normally scientists would have to try 10, 15 different optionalities. Now, with the capability of ML, AI, and some of the intelligent automation they're running in these labs, they're able to actually speed and get to the top 2 to 3 items, which may result in a vaccine that's able to then be deployed out to the population. So if we think of it as a picture, AI is the big picture, ML is the littler piece inside that is all of the data and the statistics. And then if we look at it and you start to hear terms like deep learning, AI is the bigger picture. So AI is all that intelligence not displayed by humans. Machine learning are the algorithms that sit inside of that and the ability to give machines the capability to learn. And then we have deep learning seated inside of that, where we get to another level of capability in our AI. A lot of that deep learning, when we think about that, we've seen showcased in movies, on television, those types of things. That's where we've experienced it most, is in fiction type ways. But that deep learning is here, and we're working on that right now. Now there's some different categories of AI. So there's narrow, which is most common right now. We call it narrow artificial intelligence. It's really focused on achieving one specific thing or one goal. Then there you move into general intelligence and then artificial super intelligence. So as we progress, and as Ram said, as we digitally transform, you are going to see the world moving from solutions focused on that narrow to that general to that super intelligence that is being utilized in your world more and more and more. So, and this shows you kind of where these things are playing, right? So when we talk about narrow, this is more reactive, right? So it's processing large volumes of data. It's telling us what we should have done, giving us answers of optionality and things we could do. As we move into that super intelligence, this is where things become self-aware, right? This is where we see those in the movies, as I mentioned, right? Of self-aware bots moving around, operating as if they are human, those types of things. So that's where it moves to. We're not there yet. So when people talk about AI, they're talking about different levels of AI that exists in the world. Now, AI is not new. It's been around for a long time. So scientists back in the 1980s were doing this with large computing rooms and supercomputers that they were using, because the biggest hurdle to AI and using machine learning algorithms, it was the need for compute. We needed large mass amounts of compute to be able to successfully utilize AI. And now what we have is things have matured. So as things have matured and technology has gotten less and less expensive, what we're able to do is scale the amount of algorithms we run on smaller amounts of compute. So we've been able to take it from just existing in universities and large-scale tech companies to now startups and other companies being able to really refine, hone, and work on these algorithms and this AI so that we have other approaches coming out. We have more advanced neural networks we're able to use. We also have the capability right now to be able to scale and leverage and run algorithms and use that compute at a much cheaper scale. So we have a lot more access to compute, way cheaper than we've ever seen, along with a lot of other technologies. That's why digital transformation really has been impactful at this stage, because compute, all of our technology, we're able to produce the components at a much cheaper cost, which is scaling the availability of those technologies across the globe to more individuals to get to play on these technologies. So NVIDIA makes the chips, right, that go in some of all of the hardware technologies that we're looking at right now. And one of the things we all need to be thinking about, as Ram mentioned, sometimes we take things as buzzwords. I think a lot of times people hear digital transformation, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and we go, oh, that's just a buzzword. And it's not. It's really here, and it's being used a lot in our world. And the realization that eventually AI will take over, right? So software is eating the world. If we think about how much software and apps and technology we all use every day, compared to what you did even 5 or 10 years ago, we now have many more devices per human being than we used to. Some people never owned a personal computer before. Now people own multiple laptops. You've probably got tablets. You've probably got cell phone devices. Now people own multiple devices and rely on technology to really run our day-to-day life. And eventually AI will take that place. So AI will be prevalent in everything we do and throughout our life. So here's some of the problems it does solve really well. And we all have to be conscious of this. AI and machine learning right now for companies, this is a study that Gartner does of executives. And they were asking, what are you guys really concerned about right now? What do you think is going to be a game changer for you in terms of what needs to happen? So what you're going to see is two things should always go hand in hand. When you have artificial intelligence and ML, you need data analytics. So data scientists embedded in testing teams is going to be incredibly critical for you. So you're going to need to have those people that know how to analyze the information coming out of these sophisticated systems. So us as quality professionals need to also understand what's the impact, what is the data telling us, how to analyze that information. Quality professionals are best positioned to analyze a lot of this new data coming out. So it's actually a huge positive for all of us to help and aid us in our job. Just like Ram mentioned, we want to look at the toolkit that we have and make sure we're optimizing what our human beings are doing, because that's a unique skill set, what intelligent automation does in our world, and what we use AI for. So it's really about being intentional and conscious of what you're going to use humans to perform for tasks in your organization to keep up with the pace of change, what intelligent automation is providing for you and leveraging that successfully, and then what you're able to leverage and utilize for AI and ML as a strategy in your organizations. So Here's some of the things that it does. So AI looks at different types of inputs and is able to compare those and give you information back on it. So the way I break it down is text input, where you're literally just looking at comparing text. So those are just words on a page. It also can compare images. So things that we couldn't traditionally do with standard automation was if we had a rotating image on a website. So say you were on Disney's website and they had a rotating image, and sometimes it's Mickey Mouse and sometimes it's Minnie Mouse, and then it would be Daisy or Donald or Goofy, you name it. So what would end up happening is those images rotate. And when those images rotate, you weren't able to tell the automation, check for this image, or this image, because it wasn't standard. But AI is able to say, as long as it's an image and it learns that as long as the image looks like some of these things, it's okay, keep going. And it will tell you if it differs from that, but you want those standard images, you can check with AI. It also can look at video. So testing video for things like janky frames and drop off, those types of things where it's very time consuming for humans to sit and watch episode after episode of Game of Thrones, for example, and test that it's streaming correctly. You're now able to do that using AI. It also can help you with audio. So identifying different audio coming through, and is that the audio you want? If you have a classic book that's text and an audio book, do those two things match, right? Is that matching for you when you're hearing those items? So Ram mentioned it, fundamental problem. We have this huge issue right now with, we've increased complexity dramatically. How many of you work with applications that you would say you've added increased complexity in the last several years? You know, either the website, the mobile app, you have to support more devices, you need to support now IoT devices, maybe watches, different forms of tablets, all those types of things. How many of you, we still remember where our reactions are? How many of you are having more complexity in the testing you have to do? More things that they're asking you to check for and cover. That can include security. It can include some of the other things. Do you guys have the reactions? Yes, do you know where they are? Hopefully, I'm not seeing them, so I'm making sure you guys are all still awake. All right, there we go. Mac's clapping. Thank you, Mac. And Sonia's waving. So thanks, you guys. Like I mentioned, it's much more fun to see all of your shiny faces and smiley faces normally. So some of the challenges that we have, and you can start looking at if you're able to successfully start leveraging different technologies in your environment, is things like product decision making. You know, what are the product decisions you're able to make with now better information sooner in your product life cycle? So imagine you used to have to wait a couple of weeks before you could go in and test certain features. Now, if you're using intelligent automation and you're using AI, you're able to do that much quicker in the life cycle. So you can make different decisions around what you want to do with the product, where you want to directionally point it. And a lot of us don't have time to automate our own stuff, let alone look at competitors' applications. But what you're now able to do with some of these intelligent automation strategies and AI is not only automate your own stuff, but as long as your competitors' websites are publicly available, you can actually go in and run that same set of scenarios across competitive apps that are publicly available. So it's giving you a lot more insight into, how do I compare to someone else? Is my website performing the way that someone else is? And I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times executives would ask us, not only how is my product if I'm, say, Nike, but they would ask me, how is Under Armour performing and how are these other people performing in relation to me as Nike? So we need to be able to offer some of those optionalities of what's the differential between our product and other products as well. So that's a challenge. If we're trying to do it manually and we're trying to do our job plus check those, this is where things start to come into play, where we need to utilize some of these other strategies that we've got. So some other benefits that we see when we start using intelligent automation paired with AI is speed to market. We're able to get out quicker because we're really able to focus as humans on the most impactful areas, make sure that that's where we're looking and focused. We're able to also help understand and detect these weak points in our applications, right? So one of the things that AI does for us, which is super helpful as testing professionals for all of you, is it is able to graph your applications, so your websites and your mobile apps. When you start deploying that, it gives you these app graphs which show you how the different parts of the application, the website, the mobile app are all interconnected. So you're able to quickly do that risk-based analysis of where are my weak points and what should I focus on. It's giving you a lot more data. So now you can make decisions based on that data to ensure that you're understanding where to spend your time, because your time is incredibly valuable. Now, when we're thinking about how do we start, how do we get started, right? So there's a lot of challenge around, I just don't know where to start. I hear a lot of people saying, it's just overwhelming. This is too new. I'm not sure what to do. I would always tell people, start with your challenges and issues you're having. So look at what you're not able to do today. As Ram mentioned, a lot of times we don't have the capacity or the resources we need. So if we're trying to build automation, we don't have access. We can't hire enough engineers to do the automation. We maybe don't have the coding background or expertise that we need. So we need support in that, right? So if that's a challenge or an issue, start with that. And how can we solve that in another way versus having to hire a bunch of new individuals? What is an alternative we could use to help us scale without doing that? So think about that first. What are the challenges we want to be able to solve, and iterate on those? Next, once we know what our challenges are and we've mapped those out, so map out those challenges and issues, really outline where you're struggling with your strategy today, what's not working for you, what you need to do differently. Once you understand those, you need to start looking at options and solutions. And you need to get a trusted advisor. So Ram's organization does a lot of work with helping companies understand how to put together a strategy that will work inside your organization. You need those trusted advisors you can go to seek help and not try and struggle in isolation on your own. Companies like Ram's have done this time and time again. As we heard, they've worked with some of the largest companies in the world. And so they've seen this from the perspective of different organizations and how they're solving this challenge. One of the hardest things I think about right now for us as professionals is the lack of interaction with our fellow professionals, where we don't get to go to those events and sit down and talk about, what are you struggling with? What am I struggling with? How can we solve those challenges? So engaging and meeting with folks and having a trusted advisor you call to get that support is, I've seen it be so impactful in speeding your ability to get to success faster versus trying it on your own and just struggling. I would even say reach out. Now, Ram may get mad at me because I'm going to give him a plug here, but I would say, a lot of people are hesitant to reach out to companies saying, oh, they're too busy or they don't want to maybe talk to us. But I would always say, folks like Ram, feel free to reach out if you're struggling and ask for advice to get some strategy help or a session. So Ram's shaking his head. He's telling me he'll answer your calls if you reach out. But I would do it. Like, don't be afraid. Reach out to these people right now and ask for help. And then build that strategy around those insights you're gaining from these people. And know that I know a lot of us as QA professionals want to get it perfect. We're perfectionists at heart. We want things to be perfect. But one thing we need to know with how fast the world's moving and all this new technology is we really need to start embracing the iterate and try different things, because it's not going to be perfect. Some of these technologies don't do everything we want. They're not completely perfect for our applications, but we got to get out there and try it. We're going to be behind if we don't jump in. If we keep waiting for it to be perfect, you're going to see you having issues and challenges later on down the road because you didn't jump in early enough. The other thing I would say is it's important to know what you're measuring and have good data to measure. So metrics and dashboards will be incredibly important in this process, because the amount of data you're going to be inundated with when you start using intelligent automation and AI is massive. So you want to know how to use that successfully. This is some of what I mentioned about industry comparisons. There are technologies out there right now that allow you to do this, where it's one code base. You're able to run, say, I'm Nike, and I want to run Adidas and Under Armour and see the differences on our website. So this is just a main website. If we were going to run a scenario, same scenario on all three, see what data I already got on this. So this scenario using technology took under 30 minutes to complete. And now I can run it anytime I want. I can go farther than this. But what it tells me is I know how many steps it takes me to get to do this thing. I know how many it takes Adidas. I know how many it takes Under Armour. And I know how long my customers are waiting to have that happen. Because right now with digital, everyone wants things faster. So this type of insight and data is really powerful for us as professionals to be able to give to executives and leadership. The other thing you're going to see now is the concept of the relationship worker. We are transitioning away from, we used to call it just knowledge workers and we just have knowledge. Now it's knowledge with relationship. So relationships are going to be incredibly key in this next phase of where we're going. So industrial revolutions have occurred throughout history. So we look at these different revolutions. Digital transformation and where we sit today is our fourth industrial revolution as they look at it. This started back in 2018, really, I mean, a little bit before that, we were talking about early 2000s was when we were moving into mobile and all of those technologies. Now we've got these advanced AI and ML technologies that are really emerging quickly here. So it's important to know that this will require new skills. What's going to happen, according to a lot of the future of work and futurists who study this all day long, is we're going to enhance, for the most part, what we do. But we've got to be ready to enhance and learn new skills. There's going to be new jobs created, and then there's some jobs that gradually get replaced as we bring in more and more tech. But almost 90% of what we're looking at is either an enhancement or a new skill. There are also some resources I would give you guys to look at jobs of the future and what does this intelligent automation AI thing mean to me and what should I be doing? One of the new jobs we're already seeing in tech companies is this human machine teaming manager. What that is instead of managing people, imagine we as people manage teams of bots or technology, that we're overseeing. So there's a lot of technology doing some of the heavy lifting, as Ram mentioned, instead of large amounts of people, because we just don't have enough people to do all of the work. So now we need to learn how to engage with technology and manage those bots effectively and analyze what they're doing, understand if they're getting off course, which I guarantee you they will, but you're gonna have to help them stay in line. The other thing we're going to see is that humans have to really hone in on our capabilities. So being creative, collaborative, being able to solve problems, being able to use our contextualized intelligence. You're going to hear the word empathy. We hear it a lot through the pandemic, but empathy is really critical for humans of putting that into the decisions we're making, how we're operating and engaging, being empathetic to our customers. So really understanding our customers' needs and challenges, right? So these are the things we need to focus on if we're not today. So what we also know, so Ram and I are telling you this because we care about all of you deeply and you took your time to spend an hour with us, but the reports are saying data and AI are key to a competitive advantage now. They need to be part of your bigger strategy around process automation, intelligent automation, and innovation. It is a competitive advantage. This isn't just a nice to have. This is how you differentiate from others who don't embrace some of these things early. So we have already seen it. This pandemic dramatically sped up the adoption of intelligent automation and AI in companies. People are saying we've got to do this now. So even faster than we thought previously, people are kind of holding back, seeing what would happen. Now they're speeding up. So we want to tell you this today so you guys can move forward with your organizations to adopt these. The other things I would tell you is when you look at articles, this is Forbes, and more of these are coming out. Of the 8 skills that they're saying we need to be successful post-pandemic in any job, only 3 of those skills are tech skills, right? So the reason being is intelligent automation And AI and ML will be able to do a lot of that heavy lifting, as we mentioned. You're going to need to be tech savvy to know to pick the right solutions. You're going to need to know how to use data and be data literate for a tech skill. And there is some coding and digital marketing that will obviously exist in the world. So that won't go away. But when you look at the big picture, more and more what we're focused on is some of these other skills we have to hone and refine. And the only way we get time to spend on these skills is if we leverage technology to help us do a lot of the other work that we have on our plate that we can't get through today. So the other thing we find, so here's another one. This was Fast Company's 5 essential skills to expand your job prospects. The top one was empathy. So understanding how to engage with others remotely, be empathetic. Again, what we're seeing here was soft skills primarily is what they're talking about. Is if you want to expand, you really need to let machines do the heavy lifting and you do some of those other things. Here's a few books I would recommend. So these are book resources. You can find them on Amazon. One is Humans Are Underrated, What to Do When Machines Do Everything. So in the era of automation, algorithms, big data, and bots, what is our job? And then I showed you this one earlier, but 21 Jobs of the Future. We actually were at the World Economic Forum that was in 2020. They didn't host it live in 2021, obviously, but in 2020, the CEO of LinkedIn, who sees the majority of jobs coming through, and this was for tech jobs. These aren't just all jobs. These are tech jobs. He said, these are the in-demand soft skills for 2020 and beyond. So what we're seeing is creativity, persuasion, collaboration, emotional intelligence, and empathy, right? And adaptability. So I give you this because they tell me I have to tell you it 3 times before you believe me. So I'm telling you 3 times. These are the things you should be looking at right now if you're not already in terms of your skills. And this is one I always like to remember is we don't like to, we'll go back because it went too fast for you guys. So we want to analyze, automate, monitor, and iterate, right? We want to fail fast and often. We say it, but we really got to embrace this right now because the technologies aren't perfect, but we've got to lean into these technologies right now so that we free up the capacity, the mind share for us as humans to do what we do well, as I just mentioned. So start leaning in. So bottom line, becoming a relationship worker, we should all strive for this. So as we become relationship workers, I want us to focus on fostering collaboration with our peers, finding those trusted advisors, reaching out to your networks right now and building relationships. So even though we're distanced, build relationships, have conversations. Inside your organizations, find ways to connect and collaborate with your teams, with others right now. So you are getting that connection and those ideas flowing. Adopting a where can I help mindset will be really helpful as well, because people who are out there saying, how can I help? How could we do this differently, better, more efficiently, are going to be the folks that organizations want to keep and retain. Be trustworthy and learn to trust, follow up on those commitments, and then intelligent automation. We want to make sure we're leveraging effectively intelligent automation. I left my email on the bottom. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Jen Bonine. But we'll turn it over to questions. So we have some time, 2 minutes. I didn't leave a ton of time, but we left a few minutes for questions from the audience as well.
Yeah, anyone who wants to ask question to Ram or Jennifer or both of them, please raise the hand. You have an option to kind of, raise your hand so Ram can unmute you.
Oh.
Yep, I see Kiran G, Dhamo, and Lower Gaps Technologies has questions. So first, Dhamo, Ram, can you unmute Dhamo, please?
Yeah, can you hear me, please?
Yes, Dhamo, we can hear you. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for a wonderful session, both of you. My question is straight away, we have seen a lot of things, but I would like to see some case studies where I can refer how the AI and ML is utilized in testing or automation testing especially. So if you give some case studies or some links, maybe it would be great.
Yeah, Demo, what industry are you in?
I'm into insurance.
Okay, insurance. I asked that because case studies are different by verticals on what makes the most sense and what your biggest challenges are. So I think what would be helpful, Damo, we can definitely get you some information on where to get started and some comparisons on different technologies that exist in the market space that would be potentials in those case studies based on that. So is it possible, Damo, can you send Ram and I an email and then we can get back to you with that?
Yeah, of course. Sure.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
probably Damo, just to add one more point to that, Ram is an expert in insurance part. He's helping one of the top 20 insurance people. So yeah, as Jennifer said, probably we can revert back to you with once you drop an email. So moving on, we have Kiran G. Ram, can you just?
Hi, thank you for a wonderful knowledge sharing session. Just have a quick question on in terms of the tools and the algorithm that can be used for the intelligent automation.
Right. When you ask about tools, right? So again, there is a vast area of tools, right? So where do you start and where do you end up, right? So there's a wide area of things that you need to choose. So again, if you're looking at just your product automation, then yes, you have a couple of tools which can. Today we have again AI App Store is one of thing. Jennifer is doing that. That's also one thing. And again, the use cases based off your use cases where you want to achieve efficiency. Basis of that, you need to choose the right tool, I would say. Yeah. So I can just simply say there's a bunch of products there in the market that I can say that. But if you give me your use, definitely that basis of that, right? Then it will be more precise to answer that.
Sure, I understand. The question was more towards the web application, the business flow automation testing.
Right. So definitely, I can say our product is one of the thing. The QATTS is one thing which is completely web-based and easy to solve all these web-based things very easily. So within a couple of days, you will be up and running with most of your test cases very easily, and it gives you a lot of very low maintenance. It's very easy to use kind of stuff that we built in. Yeah. So happy to give a demo on that. But apart from that, I think again. There's two things, right? So one is getting your basics right in terms of your functionality, and then you are going to the next level. So there's two aspects of your web application testing. One part of the testing ensures that you are matching value to value. And there's the other side of it where you say, how is my experience to my user kind of stuff, right? So those kind of things goes to a different level. And that's where the AI and ML will come in to say, okay, is the experience of the user coming good or not? That's a different kind of thing. So there's a transactional test automation that what you look at. You're saying the transaction has to match to this amount or this value. That is one kind of a testing. And there's the other side of it where you say, okay, the experience is good, or I use different data models to generate my test data. So I have a volume of transactions to test that kind of stuff. So there's different scenarios that you can opt for.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure, Ram, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kiran. I hope that's insightful. So we have a question from Lower Gaps Technologies and then Shashi, and also which was. So yeah, probably we will take next 3-4 questions, and probably we have to wrap it. It's taking a little time. So yeah, Ram, can you unmute Lower Gaps Technologies?
Yeah, they can unmute
themselves. Yeah, hi, good evening, Ram and Jennifer. This is Anil Kumar from India, Bangalore. That's okay. I want to know more about how your company and the product more focus on the telecom industry. I work for the telecom product like 4G testing, voice over LG testing, and currently I want to move for the 5G testing also. So how you are focusing for the telecom automation, telecom products?
Yeah, the voice seems to be a little bad. But with the glimpse I understood, Anil, you are asking to understand about how the testing happens to be on the 4G networks and the telecom industries, right?
Yeah, how the product, what you have explained, more focus in the telecom industry. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think again, so again, there's a different nature of applications that you will be building in the telecom sector, right? So most of the common thing that I would think is most of the thing is how you distribute the packet of data across different nodes, for example, or you may be computing how quickly I can transmit data from one point to another point. So these are some of the challenges that you have, right? So again, there's two kinds of things that I would say. There's again, basically classify all the testing in two phases, right? One is you have a transactional thing where you have to match. Another thing is I have to be there, or I need to see what does it feel like, kind of thing. So if you're doing a load kind of a testing, for example, so you can use the data models which will produce the real kind of a data what you have. So you can give a sample data set. Let's say you give 1,000 records or even less than that, and say, hey, look, simulated data that can produce me one month of data, for example, and then you can just inject that, and then that comes out and comes in to measure what you are measuring, right? So if you're increasing your load, and then you are seeing your application saying, okay, is the graphs are coming, or the latency is coming, achieved, whatever you're achieved can be achieved or not. So there's again two things that saying, so where I'm saying is, if there is a flow of things, there is a one way of you're automating it, and there is something that you want to increase the load and performance kind of thing. That's a different way of you take that up, right? So QATTS is specifically designed for not for performance testing. It's more about your functional testing, and then you can also inject the data kind of things using your AI and ML models. We also have some models which can produce those data and easily create your payloads and push it across the networks.
Yeah, thank you, Ram. Does it will run on the Linux environment or any specific environment?
It can run on Linux environments as well. There's no stopping on that. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
So if you want more clear demo and a clear use case, then we'll happy to give you more information and insights. What is that you are solving? And then see, we can definitely go deeper into your problem area and answer that.
Yeah, thank you, Ram.
Thanks, Anil. So next, Ram, Shashi, can you just unmute Shashi?
Yeah. Thanks, Ram, and thanks, Jennifer. So Jennifer, I liked your example of coronavirus and vaccines. How speed we could roll out the vaccines with the help of AI and ML. And I would also like to know how do you think the predictive analysis is going to help us in the test automation?
How, so just to clarify, Sashi, you want me to talk about how much it's going to help us in the predictive analytics and kind of predicting different scenarios or where issues may arise in our applications?
So mostly into test automation.
In the test automation? Yeah, so what's really interesting is the patterning that you see running over that of where are issues arising or occurring, where are the places where it's most vulnerable or weak, because you're able to see as developers add new components, do those flow through the same other areas of a site or an app where it's interconnected? So if they break one piece, it's going to break these 6 other things if it's not correct in the automation. So I really see it as tools, and we have multiple tools to be able to deploy. And it's our job to understand is where we use which tools. So I don't think AI and ML replaces all the automation, the intelligent automation we're putting in. You need that because that's going to do the heavy lifting in some of the jobs, as we mentioned. Primarily now where the advancements in the AI have been on the UX UI layers to the front end, but some of those APIs, the databases, the things that Ram's talking about are really critical, and you need to cover those as well. And then humans can do other components. So I think it's looking at what the areas of coverage need to be, and then leveraging in coordination the right tool, whether that's our human beings who know how to do certain things, our intelligent automation, which does other things really effectively and is very stable and doesn't require a lot of change, or whether it's some AI and ML mixed in on that as well, that does some things that learns over time and actually gets smarter, because it's not a one-for-one like coding. When you use AI and ML, the longer you use it, I always like to say bots start as babies and they grow up. So just like us, you want to inject those bots early, they get smarter over time and they grow into preteens, teens, adults, And by the time they're adults, they're a lot smarter. I have a lot of baby bots running around in an environment right now, and I can tell you it's like having a lot of small children. So they need a lot of coaching and help. So that's where I think you have to gauge is you get started, but know your bots won't be super mature. You're always going to need intelligent automation for certain pieces instead of the AI, and humans will always be superior in catching other things that neither of those are as good at.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. I think that's what you were talking in one of your strategy slides, like
Yeah.
trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. You got to try the different pieces and go, is this too much maintenance? Oh, maybe I'll shift it to something else. And then, you know, working with folks like Ram and his team as kind of, or in a, you know, just, you need those trusted advisors that can help you point in the right direction so that you're not spending a lot of time on stuff. Because a lot of times what I found, because being in the tech industry, there's a lot of products that look pretty and are glossy, but under the covers, they don't actually solve the problem you need solved. So you really have to have a trusted advisor you trust to go to say, is this product really going to do what I think it does? Or do I need this product and 6 other products, which may be the case because it really only does this piece.
Also, Shishi, to add to what Jennifer was saying, is when you're talking about AI and ML, first thing is you need to ask is what is your challenge? If you're not defining your challenge, then there is no way you're going to get a result. So first you need to define a challenge, then you have to put your learning on top of it to get your results out. Yeah.
Seems defining challenge is a challenge here, Ram. Great. So we have Shri.
Go for someone who is in it, but that's what again Jennifer was referring to as go to an advisor who can give you the right thing. Right? If your car is broken, if you go to a bike mechanic, he's not going to fix it, is it? You need to go to a car mechanic, right? So he's both mechanics, but you need to ask the right mechanic. So simple as that. Yeah.
Great. So Shri is waiting for a question. So he it seems he has a question for this. Can you unmute Shri?
Shishi, you have a question?
No, Shashi, not Shashi. It's Sri Ranjan.
Yeah, Sri Ranjan can.
I think, can you unmute?
Yeah, hi, thanks for the presentation. Just to follow up this, just want to know whether you can give the demo of the product itself so that we can see on live how it works and all.
Absolutely.
So just wondering, is it possible?
Yeah, sure, Sri. I think, I would get in touch with you for the next steps, probably, so that way we can proceed it. Thanks for dropping by. So any questions else, guys? I think we have taken enough questions. So I have 2 questions for both of you. So, we speak with a lot of people. I travel a lot and, I speak with a lot of people. So probably there are 0 companies in the world which are not doing AI and ML. That's what it feels at times when I speak with anyone. So everyone says they are doing AI and ML. And when it comes to the test automation part specifically, so what do you think one core area or a pillar which AI is actually lagging, or else, where you feel AI has long way to go? In fact, it has in all the aspect, to be honest, but there is one strong pillar which you feel that this is the need of the hour, where AI has to progress in a way, or else ML has to progress in a way that it actually can eradicate a lot of issues, or else kind of break down many things for the developers. So what is that pillars you feel like? And that's the first question. Second question is, how do you think humans and machines are going to be together? I mean, down the line, do you think are they going to be together, or else going to be a conflict? How does it work?
Well, I'll answer the second one first and then come back to the first one. So I think that the responsibility of all of us right now as tech professionals more than ever, if you look at trends in AI and ML, there was a good article that came out recently that was the top 10 trends that it's creating in technology with AI and ML. And one of them is the need for tech ethics. Like, we have to be real careful on the ethics of the AI and ML being used. There is a movie called Coded Bias. So if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend it. Was came out of the film festivals this last year. It talks about how if we don't do AI and ML right, that the bias in the algorithm, so the algorithms pattern data, and that patterning of data, if it's not accurate, impacts people's ability to get jobs because you're not being selected through the screening process. It impacts your ability to get a loan because you're not being selected through the screening process to move forward to get financing. It could impact your job, your ability to get admitted to a university. It can impact all parts of our lives. So tech ethics as technology professionals now, more important than I've ever seen it. And humans have to play a big voice in raising our hand when we see technology being built and companies not adhering to standards around algorithms and the accuracy of those algorithms before they're deployed. So there's something called in the US called the Algorithm Justice League. And that group is striving to ensure that algorithms that are published publicly to do things like profiling of people and security cameras and stuff on the streets are using good algorithms, because right now, some of those companies had algorithms that 60% of the time misidentified anyone with dark skin. So anyone with skin that was a shade lighter, I'm almost too dark right now, so it might identify me incorrectly, right? So it had to be very fair skinned was all it worked on, because when you think about these technologies, a lot of times when we're testing them, we're not having a diverse set of tests we're running. So even when Apple first introduced the watch, they didn't have all the skin tones, where people with tattoos, right, that had ink in the skin, to see how that would work. You really have to, with these technologies, ensure that testing is happening appropriately and that you're testing all different kinds of scenarios with it, and that you're really checking those algorithms. So to me, we need to advocate for humanized AI in my world. I think humans and machines need to work together. We need to be careful about what machines we're using to do what, and that it's accurate. And that's our job as humans, I believe. On your second or your first question was actually, where is AI not totally ready or isn't there yet? So I would say a lot of the things that Ram talked about APIs, the database, it's not there yet. Like, it's not doing that. A lot of what AI is doing, as I mentioned, was text, image, all the UI, UX stuff. That's the stuff you see. The stuff I see, the way you see, machines can identify and pattern off of images, text, voice. Some of those items are more advanced. That's where a lot of time has been spent. And then where it hasn't been spent is on some of the really critical components like data, APIs, integrations, moving things between multiple systems. That's coming, but I don't feel it's there yet. And Ram, I'm sure, has thoughts on that too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Jennifer. So what you said is absolutely right. So there's a place for, so there is a, especially I think where we lack in the AI is definitely test automation is one area. I think not many people embraced it yet. So there is definitely a scope for people to embrace there. And with the small things, I mean, you don't have to say, okay, can you do all the testing by itself? No, it can never do all the testing by itself. So you need to tell what exactly needs to be your challenges, and then you have to train it, how it needs to be done, and you need to get it. But however, it's not as complex as you think to adapt those kind of things as well. If that is what you're consuming your time day in, day out, and the solutions are much cheaper than that, that's what I would say. Yeah.
Great. Finally, I think it's time to conclude. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks Jennifer, and thanks Ram for joining. And people who joined, just to give a quick glimpse, Jennifer is the CEO of RedRex, which actually is into virtual buildings right now. One of the different concepts which you have definitely come across. So I'll go back to redrex.com and look at the company what Jennifer is building right now. She used to be on a different name earlier, AI App Store till now. The next week we are going to a complete rebrand to RedRex. Go visit redrex.com. Also go to QATTS.com, QATTS QATTS.com, which stands for Quality Automation Total Testing Software. So we are an end-to-end test automation software for enterprises, and couple of enterprises are already using it. We are headquartered in the UK, and we also have an office running back in Hyderabad in India. Thanks for being a wonderful audience. Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks, Ram, for time. You've been definitely great speakers, and definitely great things to learn from both today's session. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.